Welcome back to the OCD and Anxiety Treatment Center, Becoming an Expert. Today we are going to talk about what OCD is. So that's what we'll start with. What is OCD?
All right, so OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. So look at me in acronyms, that's pretty good. So it has really three characteristics. The first one is, let me ask you girls, have you ever been in a car and you hit a bump and all of a sudden it freaks you out for a minute because you have this thought of like, what did I just run over? Could I have just hit something or someone?
Of course.
Mm-hmm.
All the
Right?
time. Every time I hit a bump.
Right? And so all of a sudden you check your mirror.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's a really good example of how someone with OCD might feel. The first thing is that they have a thought. And I think what people really misunderstand about OCD is a lot of times that is a really illogical thought. What we would say is that it's an intrusive thought. It's a thought that you don't want to have. And so it is something that just gets stuck in your mind though. So you have that thought and you're driving in your car and all of a sudden you hit a bump and it's situational, right? And it goes into your head and then it's just like, oh, no, I'm fine. And you keep driving. But for someone with OCD, they have a thought like that and it just plants there. And we would say that it starts looping. It just starts going round and round in their mind and it cannot get out. So that's the first thing, is that there is some kind of intrusive thought. Okay? The second thing is that there is some kind of compulsion. We in the clinic call it a neutralizing behavior. So it tries to neutralize that threat that they feel because of the thought that they had. So they want to either do something, or it doesn't have to be an action. It can be a mental compulsion or neutralizer as well. So a lot of times we might see different things that people just do anything to try to get away from that threat or intrusive thought that they're having. So that's the second thing. And then the third thing that makes OCD is that it totally starts to interfere with your life. So it's not one of those like personality quirks. You do not like it. I think that's the thing that people really misunderstand about OCD. They're like, oh great, I would love OCD, or I'm so OCD or whatever. But that's not what it's like. It's not a good thing. It doesn't cause relief. It's not great. Instead, you do not like it. It interferes with your life. It takes you away from relationships. It takes you out of school. It takes you out of work. It takes you away from the things that you care about. Those three things make OCD.
All right. So when you talked about that they have a thought that is intrusive and something that they don't want, what does that mean? What do those thoughts look like to someone who is diagnosed with OCD?
Awesome. So I'm glad you asked that, because I think that a lot of people think, like I said, that it is just like, oh my gosh, I want to be so clean, or all of those kind of things that we see like on Monk or a show like that, right? I'm not going to step on the cracks to make sure that something bad won't happen. But in the center, we see things instead that might be like scrupulosity, which is the fear of doing something against your morals or your belief system, your religious belief system. That's really common. Harm OCD. I'm afraid that I am going to harm someone. I also in the clinic am afraid I might harm myself. That's really common. Actually, sexual orientation OCD is really common as well. I'm afraid that I might become a homosexual. I'm afraid I might become straight. Those kind of fears are really common. OCD tends to grab the things that you care about the very most and just twist them in a way that makes them awful and uncomfortable. So instead, we see thoughts that people have on an everyday basis, and then they care a lot about them, and so instead OCD just tends to grab them and attack them. And so what do people really care about? They really care about their religion. And so what is OCD going to attack? You might do something against your religion. You might just, break a commandment. So it attacks that. What we see so often is we have these cute new moms that will have a new baby, and all of a sudden they're changing their baby's diaper for the first time. They have this one intrusive thought: what's the worst thing you could possibly think as a brand new mom? That you would hurt your baby. And so all of a sudden it grabs onto that and is like, what if I hurt my baby? What if I sexually abused my baby? What if I became a pedophile? And it grabs onto that and it just twists it, and all of a sudden loop, you can't get it out of your head.
So it's more than just a simple thought.
It is more than a simple thought. Yeah, it terrorizes you.
Yeah.
And what's sad is these people still go about their business, still do their thing. There's a great research article called The Silent Sufferers of OCD. They wear this mask pretending everything is just fine. They go to school, they go to soccer, they go to work, and they pretend everything's just fine, totally tortured on the inside.
Well, what are some of the compulsions?
Good question. The ones we see the most aren't don't step on a crack or turn the lights on and off, even though we can see those. Some of the most common compulsions actually all happen right here. They happen in your mind. So it might be mentally reviewing. Think of a time where all of a sudden you've been in a situation and you think to yourself, like in the car, did I hit someone? Did I hit someone? All of a sudden you're replaying what happened in the car. Okay, I drove down the street. Was there an ambulance there? Did a police come? Was a person on the corner of the street? You just start mentally reviewing the situation that you've been through over and over. Or you're sitting in school, right? And you're like, did I make a mistake? Was someone watching? How many people were watching me, right? Just mentally reviewing situations over and over. One of the most common we see is actually just asking reassurance. Taygan, did I sound okay when I said that?
Yeah.
Compulsion. And it feels good for just a minute, right? I'm like, oh good. I hope it sounded good during that segment. And then all of a sudden my brain resets because I have OCD and I'm like, but I think I sounded stupid. Taygan, did I sound okay in that segment?
Of course.
And I want to say it over and over and over again. Those mental compulsions happen all the time in OCD.
So then, one more question for you. I think people say like, oh, I have OCD because they do move something and say that they're super clean and then kind of joke about it sometimes. So how does someone who's actually diagnosed with OCD, how does that differ and how does it actually affect their lives?
Yeah. I think it's really interesting because we have people come in the clinic that still live really effective lives. And I had said in a previous segment, the average age of onset is 19 and a half years old. And I obviously am a research nerd and that there's truth to that, but I also think that that's somewhat of a lie. It's a genetic-based disorder. That's why we're doing this segment, right? The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. When one person experiences it, it seems that the family gets to experience it. But really, it does grow with you throughout your experience, but it tends at 19 and a half years old that people seek treatment for it. They can't manage it on their own. And so I think what that means is all of a sudden they can't handle living life like they feel like they should anymore. They can't go to school. And we see all of a sudden kids dropping out of school, or they can't manage work anymore. So they can't do those, what we would call activities of daily living, those things that are really important that people should be able to do to manage their life, go to work. Actually, some of the things like maintain hygiene is really important. And that can include feeding themselves, taking medication, even showering. Those things become really important. And so we want people to be able to live the life that they want to live. When they stop being able to live the life that they want because anxiety or OCD is instead making those choices for them, then that starts to become a diagnosis instead of just something that bothers or frustrates them. All right, does that answer all the questions about OCD?
I think so.
Yep. All right, very good. Tune in next time. We'll answer some more questions for you.
Bye, guys.